Okay, good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us for this afternoon's webinar, Building a Financial Plan That Works Before, During, and After the Emergency. So my name is Lori Hylton. I am a certified financial health coach and accredited financial counselor. Here at Freedmen Heirs, I'm the Director of Strategic Programming, and I'm really excited to have this conversation with you this afternoon. Now, we were going to be joined by Africa Yates, a farmer and colleague of ours. However, unfortunately, she is unable to join us. And so we are going to continue moving the conversation forward because, I mean, having a plan for your finances, like having a plan for life in general, things happen and you have to keep rolling with it. So that is what we're doing. We're rolling with it. And let's get started. Next slide. So, some housekeeping notes. The webinar is being recorded and will be posted on the Freedmen Heirs Foundation website as well as our YouTube channel. Because it is a webinar, cameras and microphones are off for all of you, but I will be taking questions in the chat. The Q&A and the chat function are both functioning, and myself and Eva is here. Eva Missoura on staff here at Freedmen Heirs. She will be helping to facilitate questions in the chat. Okay. Okay, so our mission here at Freedmen Heirs is to empower Black and underserved farmers to build generational wealth by expanding market access, technical assistance, and enhancing financial resilience overall. We are, again, really excited about today's conversation because being prepared for an emergency, for unexpected crises. Eva, I'm going to let you move the slides instead of me trying to do it because they have a mind of their own.
Okay.
Being prepared for emergencies and unexpected crises is a critical part of operating a successful business and operating a successful life. Things happen and we need to be able to flex and be resilient in order to respond to all of the unexpected ups and downs that life has in store for us. So with that, let us move on to the next slide. Okay, so today we're going to be covering a few things. We're going to be covering cultivating a readiness mindset. I'm going to ask some questions about assessing your unique farm risks. So what are the areas that your farm in particular needs to examine in order to best prepare yourself? We'll talk about financial strategies for strengthening your finances, building an emergency fund. We'll look at some of the really important different types of insurance. We'll talk a little bit about insurance. We'll talk a little bit about planning for minor children or anyone that you might have responsibility for, frankly, as a part of not the farm plan, but as a part of your overall emergency plan in general. We'll look at protecting yourself against digital threats. More and more, we have to be aware and responsive to the digital environment, identity theft, etc. And we'll talk a little bit about leveraging community resources and agricultural resources in order to respond to any situations that come up. Next slide. So I like to say that the keys to resilience are these four things. Having an emergency fund or an emergency budget, meaning like understanding what financial resources you have available to be able to be responsive. Understanding community resources, not-for-profit resources, organizational resources that are going to be there to support you in a time of an unexpected crisis. Staying ready, that's again a mindset thing and a preparation thing, having items and documents and plans in place and then responding quickly. So building the emergency resources in terms of the budget and having an emergency fund, understanding the community resources that you can tap into, and having your plan in place. All of those things allow you to respond quickly. And we know that in times of emergency, um, those who are able to respond quickly often are able to take advantage of programs, resources. They're able to better manage the situation because they have something already in place. They're not just starting from scratch trying to figure it out. So those are the four keys that we think of when we're talking about building a strategy that works before, during, and after. Next slide. So the stay ready mindset, again, back to that preparation, being prepared for a crisis, it's the foundation of resilience. And I'm talking about resilience as in your ability to bounce back from the crisis and respond. There's no way that we're ever going to be able to build a plan that can respond to every single thing, or build a plan that is going to, make you impervious, completely protect you from any and every crisis. But what we can do in putting a resilience plan is in place is allow you to sort of absorb the shocks and be able to bounce back. And that's what the focus of the stay ready mindset is really about. So staying informed of the resources that are available, doing that proactive planning, keeping your finances in fighting shape, that is part of that staying ready mindset. Next slide.
We had a poll here.
Oh, we have a poll. Great. I love polls. Okay, Eva, bring up the poll.
Let me see this. Okay, hold on.
So I think, okay, here we go. So our first poll is about financial preparedness concerns. So what's your biggest financial preparedness concern? I want to hear from each of you in the session about what those concerns are. So click on one, just a single choice. We'll give it a couple of seconds, and then Eva can share the results of the poll with us. So the options are not enough cash reserves for lean times, concerns around crop loss or livestock disease, fluctuating market prices, equipment breakdowns, or identity theft, digital fraud, or not sure where to start. And another option that we didn't have in there, that we can come back to later, but could be, there might be health concerns or things like that. But in terms of financial preparedness concerns, which of these is at the top of your list? Eva, do we have some responses?
The 100% is not enough cash reserves for lean times.
Not enough cash reserves for lean times. Okay, thank you. So yeah, that is a concern for that we all share, I think. We're all especially in these times, trying to figure out how to stockpile cash in order to be prepared is critical. So we will talk about that. All right, next slide. Okay, so assessing potential risks and vulnerabilities for your particular farm is step one in terms of putting together an emergency plan. And I'm saying for your farm, but the reality is this is assessing potential risks for your life, right? So in the case of your farm, you're looking at financial and market risks, volatile prices, etc. Farming in as just part farming is inherently risky because you have environmental concerns, changes um, in natural disasters, crises that can lead to crop losses or to damages, operational risks in terms of equipment or even um, not having enough labor in order to get the work done. But you also then have the personal risk and how those um, impact your life as well as the farm. So in order to get started with developing a plan, you need to figure out what are your top concerns. Like among this list, what are the top concerns? Where would you start in terms of trying to tackle some of these challenges? So is your top concern the financial markets? Do you have healthcare concerns? Take those top concerns and we'll begin building your plan there. So I would love to know if some of you wanted to, drop some of those top concerns into the chat. We can take a closer look. Oh, okay, I see something. Okay,
And we
great.
do have another poll now.
Yes, awesome. Launch the poll. Okay, so our next poll is asking, on a scale of 1 to 5, how confident are you in your current understanding of your farm's specific risks? So, are you not confident at all? You're a little confident, moderately confident, very confident, or extremely confident? So, where do you fall um, within that range? And your understanding of what the current situation is and the current risks are of course will feed into your ability to respond, to develop a plan. This process is really about not me giving you the answers today, but to get you to begin thinking about how you begin to frame out a plan for responding uh, to situations that you find yourself in. Okay, Eva, how's the poll looking?
We have two, a little confident.
Okay. Folks are a little confident. Okay, that's good. That's good. It's good to have some confidence, but we want to get you to the point where you are extremely confident that you've checked all the boxes for your particular situation. So again, identifying what your top 3 concerns are for your farm and for your family, and beginning to like tease out the questions, asking um, asking yourself how you would respond to a particular situation, and then trying to identify the resources, supports, build a plan to respond to those particular concerns. That's the beginning of creating that broader plan. Next slide. Okay, so key to every plan is the emergency fund and the emergency budget. So if you have been in a workshop session with me or my colleagues before, you'll know that the conversation about the emergency budget and the emergency fund are regular parts of what we're talking about, what we're sharing. and trying to encourage people to build. Emergency fund is your number one backup. It is your safety net. It is the thing that is going to help keep your life out of the ditch. Now, before you can develop your emergency fund, you first need to figure out how much you need in case of an emergency. So that starts with building your emergency budget. So if you take a look at the slide, you'll see we have that 50, 30, 20 budgeting graphic on there. And what we try to do is encourage people to work towards having their main needs for their household, and then also for their business fall into that 50%, 50% of their income. Now, when they're able to cover 50%, when they're able to cover their housing, their food, their core needs with 50% of their income, then if a sudden loss of income, a healthcare scare or something that would reduce income, is easier to manage because you can get by on only 50%. Now, that is an aspirational number for most everyone, especially in today's times with cost of housing, cost of land, with cost of everything, food, utilities, insurance, all of the things being so high. Keeping your budget to that 50% is challenging, but it is something that we encourage people to work towards, because the closer you get to that 50% number, the bigger your cushion is, the more resilient you have the opportunity to be. But as you're looking at your everyday budget and you're trying to determine what your emergency budget is, you want to focus on those core needs, the housing, the utilities, your mortgage. If we're looking at your farm business, any insurances that are related to the business, any labor costs related to the business. For each section, for both your household and for your farm business, you need to identify what those core needs are, and those pieces are what will become the basis, the foundation for your emergency budget. Once you have those numbers identified, to say, giving a round number, your emergency budget is roughly $2,000 a month, then you know that 1 month's worth of emergency expenses is $2,000, and you want to build from there. So how much should you aim to save? Generally starting out, we're talking about 3 to 6 months of those essential expenses for your emergency budget as the target. So when you're creating that emergency budget, you're looking at the things that are non-negotiable. So the things that you absolutely cannot go without, and everything else we're going to put to the side for the moment, and you can always come back, add those items back in once the emergency has passed. Next slide. So when you are actually creating your emergency fund, building it, you want to protect it, and therefore you're going to keep it in a separate place than you keep your standard everyday checking account money. You want to keep it in a separate account, high yields savings account, separate from for your personal account. You want to keep that separate from your everyday checking. For your farm business, you want to keep those emergency funds, that contingency fund for the farm. You keep it in an account that is separate from your everyday operating accounts. You need to be able to get to it, so you need it to be accessible, but you don't want it to be something that you're dipping into for non-emergencies. So an action plan for getting to the emergency fund is to identify how much you need in the short run, set a specific target goal, savings goal for that amount, and begin looking at ways that you can either make cuts or increase income in order to build that fund. And it will happen over time. Building an emergency fund, whether it's 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, or 1 month, it doesn't happen overnight, but it is something that you need to take uh, intentional steps to move towards. And so you want to set yourself some goals, a timeline in order to begin moving towards that. Now, one initial goal, if you don't have any emergency fund set aside at all, we always ask that people look at ways to begin to set up to set aside $1,000 as like a starter baby emergency fund, just to get you going, so that you have some money in the bank, some cash on hand. The next level up from that is, I would say, is 1 month of emergency budget, and if not 1 month, then get to your highest insurance deductible. And we're going to touch on insurance in a little bit, but the reason for getting to that highest insurance deductible is that that amount will be large enough to, one, cover the deductible, so that in case something happens, uh, I don't know, a roof, a fire, anything that happens, all of the emergencies that would be covered by insurance, flood, etc. If you can cover that deductible, then the support from the insurance company, those resources kick in. But if you do not have the resources to cover that deductible, then you're not able to take full advantage of the protection that you're paying for. So having that deductible amount as a milestone on your emergency fund budget is a key one. Okay, and then of course, if you do find that you need to dip into your emergency fund, then do your best to get it replenished. This is not, building your emergency fund is never a one-time thing. It's always going to be something that happens over time. You use it, it needs to be refilled. Next slide, Eva. Okay, so some financial preparedness strategies that I'm sure many of you are already employing, and some that you might consider employing. Income diversification. So, if you're farming a particular type of crop, are there other crops that are in higher demand that you might consider? Livestock diversity, same kind of thing. Value added products. Is there an opportunity for creating more value added products to increase income? Agritourism, very popular these days. People want to experience life on a farm without actually doing most of the work. And so is there an opportunity, a space on your farm where you might be able to create something to respond to that need? And then, of course, many farmers we know have off-farm income. Having these diverse income streams helps to create more of a cushion, more flexibility. Then in terms of risk mitigation, if you're not using conservation practices, think about how you can incorporate conservation practices into your farm in order to make make yourself more resilient. Market and futures contracts. consider if you are able to lock in some contracts for a particular crop before you actually start growing. This way, you know you have a guaranteed buyer and some sustained income. Ensuring that you're growing a crop that definitely has a buyer rather than growing a crop and then searching for buyers after the fact. And then, of course, succession planning. What is going to happen to the land that you have? If you own your farm, if it's a family farm, have you taken the steps to identify, to create a will, frankly, so that your land remains in the hands of your family if you want it to be in the family, so that you don't find yourself dealing with an heirs property situation. Next slide. Okay, next we have incorporating a proper insurance. So here I have a long list of different types of insurance: farm and property insurance, crop insurance or livestock insurance, liability insurance. Each of these has a place in your plan, depending on what your specific needs are. So I can't say that you definitely specifically need one of these types of insurance, well, I'll take that back. Everyone needs health insurance. So that is one. If you don't have health insurance, that is one that we definitely need to address. Finding resources in order to get that done, because a medical emergency can completely wipe someone out financially. So everyone needs health insurance. The other types of insurance for farm and property insurance, etc., workman's compensation, those pieces will depend on your specific farm needs, although property insurance protects your buildings, equipments, etc. Likely most of you will need that. Next slide. So when you've actually got the insurance, the next thing is to make sure that you are reviewing your policies regularly so that you understand exactly what is covered and what isn't covered. So are your coverage limits enough for your farm, or for your home if your home is off the farm? Over the last several years, we know that the prices and the value of homes, real estate, land, etc., has risen sharply. But if you are carrying a policy that was written several years ago, and like say your policy was originally written 10 years ago, and you have not increased the assessed value, the replacement cost, etc., on your policy, then if you find yourself in an emergency situation where you had property damage, you may not have adequate coverage. So really checking on those pieces regularly is critical to your plan. What are your deductibles? I brought that up earlier. Making sure that you have enough resources to cover those deductibles are critical so that you can take advantage of the coverage that you're paying for. Understanding any exclusions or specific endorsements related to your farm risk. Obviously, all of this means that you need to take the time to understand, to really know exactly what is in your policy, what you're covered for, what you're not covered for, and figure out what any gaps might be. Oftentimes, the policy language can be a little unclear. So if you're not clear, about what's covered or what's not covered, make the call to your insurance agent so that they can explain to you clearly what it is that you're getting, so you know that you're going to be prepared. And of course, you want to make sure that you're getting the best rates for those types of coverage. So this issue of insurance is one that is very, very broad and deep. There are a lot of pieces to it, and we will be covering insurance more deeply in another session. But for today, I just want you to begin examining what coverage you have and consider what you might need. Next slide. Okay, again, so why insurance matters. I think I probably covered that already, but it protects you against unexpected costs from illness, accidents, crop losses, etc. It does help to give you a little bit of financial stability, assuming that you have met that you do have that deductible to pay if something happens, so that you can get the support from the insurance company. Okay, so we have a poll. Eva, can you launch the poll?
Yep, 1 second.
Okay, so here's our question for you. When was the last time you reviewed your farm's crop or livestock insurance policies? Was that within the last year? Was it 1 to 3 years ago, more than 3 years ago, or you have never done it at all? So we're gonna take, just a couple of seconds, and then Eva, you can give us the results of the poll.
Okay. We have more than 3 years ago.
More than 3 years ago. Okay. So it may well be time for you to begin revisiting that coverage. So, well, not may well, it is time to take another look to ensure that you have the coverage that you need. Okay, next slide. Okay, so protecting against identity theft and digital fraud. This might be a new one for folks in terms of talking about emergency planning and preparation. But it is a critical one for the time that we live in. Um, around around any and every emergency, it seems like there are scams popping up. Scams, text message scams, email scams, phishing scams, just everything. People trying to get access to your data, trying to get access to your farm's information, get access to your personal data in order to scam you, take advantage of you, or take advantage of other systems in your name. And so it is really critical that you engage in some, fraud preventative strategies. So first one is pretty basic, the multi-factor authentication. I know that it is a pain in the butt when you're trying to log into something online and they want to send you a text message so you can put in another code and blah, blah, blah. They want you to continue to verify your identity over and over again. It is a pain, but it is worth taking the extra time and steps to have those multi-factor authentication pieces in place, because criminals are getting more and more sophisticated. Uh, our devices, our phones, our computers are all connected to the internet, obviously, and we're not always taking the best precautions in how we use things. As we go from site to site, we are often exposed without our realizing to, viruses and spyware and all of those things. We're hearing more and more about all of these breaches, data breaches. Every month there's a new data breach. So it's really important to take advantage of the multi-factor authentication as an added protection. Checking your credit report regularly is, again, really critical, because if you can catch something early, you'll be better able to sort of nip things in the bud before an identity thief gets out of hand. So securing your devices, monitoring your accounts. Please do not use the same password over and over. It is very tempting. I'm sure you've heard this from many, many sources, but having a password storage system, one of those things like LastPass, or what's the one that you've recommended most recently, Eva?
1Password.
1Password. All of those kinds of tools can be really, really helpful in allowing you to have more complicated passwords for the various sites and keeping track of things. It's really critical because our lives are now digital, whether we want it or not. We've been dragged kicking and screaming into the digital age, and we really need to deal with those realities. Next slide. Oh, we have a poll. Okay, we have a poll here.
We were going to do the poll after the
We're
slide.
gonna do that poll after this line? Okay. So what'd you do if you're compromised? If your credit is ever compromised, and I would even say before your credit is compromised, freeze your credit reports. You can go on to each of the credit agencies, TransUnion, Experian, Equifax, and for free, set up an account so that you can freeze your credit reports. So once your credit report is frozen, it's basically locked. No one can open a new line of credit in your name that would show up on the credit reports because it is blocked. In order for even for you to open up a new line of credit, you want to apply for a mortgage or you want to go for a car loan, you have to actually go to those creditors, to those reporting agencies and unfreeze your credit for a particular period of time to allow the application to process. It is an extremely simple thing to do to set up these freezes and offers you a lot of protection. So if your identity is ever compromised, that is the first thing that you should do. But I say do it even before your identity is compromised as a preventative measure. Okay, then of course you want to secure your accounts, change your any passwords, enable that multi-factor protection again, and then report things to the authorities. We've got here identitytheft.gov is a really useful resource. They can help walk you through the steps of what it is that you need to do in your particular situation for the particular types of accounts that have been compromised. And then, of course, notify lenders, banks, utility companies, etc. Any companies that you do regular financial transactions with, notify them of the changes. Okay, so with that, let's launch the poll. All right. So if your farm's financial records were compromised digitally, would you know the first 3 steps to take? So is it yes, absolutely, you have a general idea, or you have you're not sure where to start?
And we have no, I'm not sure where to start.
Not sure where to start. Okay. Well, so if we're not sure a good place to start is with these items that we just talked about, in terms of changing the passwords, etc., going ahead and reporting to the authorities. And then going to identitytheft.gov as a place to get specific steps for your situation. So I highly encourage you to take a look at that website, identitytheft.gov. It has a whole toolkit, whole toolkit rather, and it'll walk you through what needs to happen for you. Okay, next slide. Okay, so planning for minor children. So if you have not had the time or opportunity to set up a guardianship or identify a guardian for any children or dependents that would need care if you were not around, this is really, 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 really critical. I just can't say that enough for the health and well-being of your family. If you are not around to make decisions about who is going to care for your dependents, then the courts will make those decisions. And I think in most cases, we would rather make those decisions for ourselves. So highly encourage you to look at legal guardianship opportunities if you have not already done so. Another piece that I will say in regards to that is if you've identified someone that you would like, or a family member or a friend, etc., don't keep that a secret from them, right? Have that conversation now so they understand what your expectations are, and they understand the responsibility that you're entrusting to them. And you can understand if maybe that person is not the right choice and you need to make another decision. So doing this kind of prep way out in advance really is critical because we just never know what's going to happen, and it's much harder after the fact for everyone involved. Okay, an important part of planning for minor children and other dependents, having those important documents, the birth certificates, the social security cards, the medical records, all of those things, powers of attorney, etc. If you can begin to assemble those things, know where they are you keeping them in a fireproof uh, uh, lockbox or something at your home, or are you keeping things in a safety deposit box at a bank, etc.? But keeping track of those documents is really critical. Next slide. Okay, and then we have understanding and accessing community resources. So who are the people in your network that you can count on in a pinch? What are the organizations and agencies that you can turn to for assistance? Identifying who in your particular region, in your particular community is available is a really important first step. Once you've got those resources sort of identified, you know that there are resources that can begin to address some of your top concerns, then you're better positioned to actually take advantage of those resources in the case of a crisis, because you're not trying to figure things out on the fly. You've done some of the preparation work ahead of time. Okay, so let's have a poll, Eva. Okay, so legally designated guardian. Have you legally designated a guardian for your minor children? And I will caveat or other dependents. So is the answer yes? Is it no, but it's on my to-do list? No, I haven't considered it, or not applicable. So designated guardian for minor children or other dependents.
We have not applicable.
Not applicable. Okay, well, that is great in your situation because you don't have to think about that. But for those of you who do, it is really it's a important first step in setting up your plans. So with that, next slide, Eva. Okay, so your readiness action plan. Some key takeaways for you are: one, review all of your risks, your financial risk, operational risk, health risks, etc. What are your top risks? What do you see as your vulnerabilities? And begin to start developing uh, developing a plan to respond to those. Or even if you're not developing a plan, begin to ask the questions for how you would respond, right? Um, Start to build or bolster your emergency savings. Look at what your credit resources are. Of course, we don't encourage anyone to take on debt, but if you don't have an emergency savings set aside, or if you are in a truly dire situation where you run through your emergency savings, what are the following resources, the resources you can take advantage of after that? Um, Review and update all insurance policies. Um, Protect yourself against uh, any digital threats. Plan to formalize your guardianship for your children, children or other dependents, gather vital documents, and begin to connect to those resources. Now, we've gone through a long list of items and it's not just a checklist of things like, okay, now I've got the birth certificate and, it's done with the documents. It's a lot of things and it will take time. But starting this process and building on it a little at a time is really important and critical for the long-term viability of not just your farm, but your family overall. So the first step is always the hardest, but go ahead, take that first step, and check back in with us. Let us know how you're doing. Regularly review all of the changes that may come up in your life and see how those impact your plans as time moves forward. Okay, next slide. Okay, so finally, responding quickly. We talked about that and at the very beginning. Putting all of these pieces together will again allow you to respond quickly in a scenario where there is an emergency. Um, Responding quickly allows you to be flexible. When something happens, when an emergency happens, or a job loss happens, or a loss because of a particular crop loss, oftentimes people are reluctant to make changes to their situation because they're hoping that things will get better quickly, and so they don't respond quickly by making cuts and adjustments, etc. They don't seek help quickly. They kind of wait, but waiting actually can make the situation worse, better rather than better. So preparing yourself to be able to respond quickly by having uh, at least initial plans in place is really, really important for being able to be resilient. So create a proactive plan and revisit it regularly. Okay. And okay, we have some practical skills for staying ready, securing your essential documents, beginning to have those conversations, assessing your emergency cash, and doing the things that you need to do to protect your identity, etc. So all these slides will be made available to you. They'll be posted along with the recording. So you don't have to get everything down now, but these are the steps, the beginning of creating that emergency plan that is going to serve you not just in an emergency, but well after. So I think questions now. Do we have any questions? Okay. Well, we have gone through a great deal of material, and I am sure. Oh, okay, yeah. We've gone through a great deal of material, and it's going to take time to digest a lot of this material. But take the time. And if you have questions, you can always follow up with us online. You can email me at Lori at Freedmen Heirs, freedmenheirs.org. You can reach out to our team, and we look forward to seeing you in the next session. Okay? Thank you, everyone. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.